They're commenting that Gord made a comment in episode 38 about the importance of assumptions in anyone's do-it-yourself retirement plan, in addition to an assumed inflation rate. What else should a person be concerned about in terms of assumptions? And there's a few other points that they make as well as in the question that we might get to. And somebody replied back that the investment assumptions for equities and bonds and fixed income rates. So yes, there's a few, I would say, key assumptions that you're going to want to make sure are discussed or looked at in either your do-it-yourself retirement plan or even any retirement plan you're having done by a planner or an advisor. So not only would that be the inflation rate, but as this person, one person replied here, is also what are the assumptions for equities and bonds and fixed income? Basically, your different methods of investing your money. Equities tend to have a different rate of return over the long term than bonds do, than cash does, and we could get into all kinds of alternatives and alternate investments as well and things like that. Real estate, assumptions on real estate. And I would say one thing about any and all these assumptions is that I would always lean on the conservative side. You're never going to have a perfect assumption. And we're talking about long-term assumptions here, 10 plus years. You might see a video that I did a few weeks ago about the Financial Planning Canada and Institute of Financial Planners annual projection assumptions guidelines, where they touch on some of these things as well. So if you think that inflation is going to be at 2% for the next 10 or 20 years, maybe use 2.25, maybe use 2.5. You think your equities are going to do 8%, maybe use 7.5. I think it's always better to be a little bit on the side of conservativeness than be a little bit on the side of aggressiveness. But before I list off a few others, Paul, anything on your mind that you think that should be included in a do-it-yourself plan, or at least discussed with a planner if they're working with a planner and understanding what assumptions are being made?
Yeah, let me just say, we are building out financial projections. Essentially, anything beyond today is an assumption. And so the entire plan is based off of assumptions. And it's the world that we as financial planners live in is the what if world. Well, what if this? Well, what if that? And just going back to your comment, this is why we prefer to use more conservative assumptions so that the outcome of the plan brings you confidence and brings you some level of assurance. Now, anything can happen, and we don't know what the future will bring. But in terms of the question here, yeah, there's essentially we make assumptions on everything: life expectancy, investment returns, how much you're actually going to be spending. You might have a good idea what you're going to spend next year, but how much are you going to spend in 10 years or 15 years, right? Different things will happen in your life that will change these assumptions that we use, right? What year are you planning on retiring? What year are you actually going to retire? How much are you saving? How much are you anticipating to receive from the government in terms of CPP and OAS? Maybe something changes and you decide to or need to take CPP earlier than 70 when you had planned to do so. And so these are just some of the items that we make assumptions around. Now, in terms of your question here around the tax brackets, the tax rates and such, those rates are calculated in the back end of our planning software. And the planning software assumes that the Canadian tax system is not changing drastically. And so that's kind of the first point. And otherwise, it's just adjusting the tax rates, the tax credits, the deductions based off of inflation. And so that's kind of the best that we can do. And it opens up the question around plan updates as well, right? Given that things change, yeah, a plan update may very well be worthwhile in 3 to 5 years or upon a significant life event. So, just some general thoughts that I had on that topic. But at a certain point, we have to use the best information that we have today, understanding that things can and will change.
Yeah. And I've often used the example of the gas gauge in my car. So I get in my car, I'm going to drive to my hometown of Belleville, about a 3.5 hour drive in decent traffic, no stopping. I can look at my gas gauge, 3/4 full, and go, you know what, I think I'm going to make it. But as I'm driving along that trip, I may surprise myself and I'm using a lot less gas than I thought because there was less traffic, there was a tailwind, whatever the case may be. Good problem to have. Fantastic, right? Whereas the opposite can happen, and I could be checking that gas gauge because we've had traffic issues or headwind or whatever the case may be, and I'm actually looking like I may need to be pulling into a gas station. Maybe I can make it all the way to my hometown, but maybe I don't want to risk it. So, how that stretches out for me to financial planning is exactly what you said. The gas gauge is today. This is what I've got to work with. And here are the assumptions that I'm going to make on my trip that I go called retirement that is going to say, I think I can make it this far. And I'm going to be conservative so that hopefully when there is a difference, and there's always going to be a difference because it's not going to be exact to the dollar and the cent 10, 15 years down the road, or maybe even 5 years. But if there's a difference, at least that difference is, oh, I've got more gas in the tank than I thought I was going to have at this point. I've got more money in my investment accounts than I thought I was going to have. I would rather adjust for that quote unquote problem, good problem to have, than adjust for the other problem. Whereas I think I've spent way too much money. I should have spent less over the last 5 years. And now instead of having enough money until 95, I'm now looking like I'm going to run out of money at 87. My gosh, I wish I went back 5 years and made those changes. So to your point, you're absolutely right that everything from tomorrow onwards is an assumption, and that's how we work with those assumptions.